Because we will look at leadership, management, and strategy. As we continue to ease through this very unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, we'll continue our discussions around the unconscious organization, personal and organizational growth hacks. It's quite important that we continue to look at these discussions. And our key guest, of course, is Mr. John Wese, a strategic management consultant and CEO of Syntech Nigeria Limited. Good morning and nice to have you, Mr. John Wese.
Good morning, Otto. Good morning. Nice to be here and thank you again.
Yes, yeah. Before we move on quickly, let's give you updates on the current COVID-19 cases in Nigeria and things you need to know around it. The current case is 31,323. Quite interesting that it has risen to over 30,000 now as at July 11th, 2020. The active cases are 17,819. 12,795 people have recovered so far, while 709 deaths have been recorded. 175,656 sample tests have been carried out, showing that the Nigeria Center for Disease and Control have been stepping up in terms of tests and verifications of people that may have this COVID-19 virus. And that is an improvement from the initial 10,000 that we saw in April. In terms of states with the highest cases, Lagos continues to be the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic with 12,051 cases, followed by the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, that has 2,433 cases, and Oyo State in southwestern Nigeria that has 1,689 cases. For the states with the lowest index cases, we have Taraba with 27. Taraba is in northeast Nigeria. Kogi State in north central has 5, and Cross River State also has 5 cases. Note that for over 3 months, Kogi and Cross River were yet to record an official case. So all the states in Nigeria now have cases of COVID-19, and it's very important that we take note of that. Also, the protocols and the guidelines must be followed, and we employ all Nigerians and others across the world watching to continue to follow the guidelines across your nations on averting the pandemic spreading. Yes, our conversation today is on the unconscious organization, personal and organizational growth hacks. Mr. Wese, but let's first look at the situation that we have, which is really impacting everyone. One aspect that's being impacted is learning. And initially, the federal government was looking at resuming schools around August, but for now, the Minister of Education, Laji Adamu, said that they don't want to take that risk because of the fact that this could be a quicker way for community transmission. And they have reviewed the resumption and said for now, they will not resume federal government-owned schools. Most state governments, just like my state, Akwa Ibom with Governor Udom Emmanuel recently said, the state will take all necessary measures, review it, but for now it's not going to reopen schools. So many state governments are not really keen on reopening, though Lagos State had indicated that by August would likely reopen. There have been the debates that would have leveraged digital platforms, but the state of our secondary schools, the state of primary schools, for those that are in graduating classes, primary 6, those sitting for their senior certificate examinations, that's WAEC, and of course, those in the junior secondary level. The state of the schools comes to question, and then, of course, resumption. They have to sit for their exams, yes. WAEC, West Africa Examination Council, Nigeria, is among the highest in terms of student enrollment and funding. But, Mr. Wese, what are your thoughts? Because for people like us, we want to take health very important and caution. And we know that many parents have said they will not even allow their children to resume for now.
Thank you, Otto. I think the concern is mainly with the public schools.
Yeah, because private schools are okay. You need to set that context. Private schools can manage it.
Yes, I think the concern is with the private schools.
Yes.
So there lies the burden. Haven't gone through the guidelines for resumption of schools for only a targeted number of pupils in a certain class. Those in primary 6, those in JSS 3, as well as those in senior secondary who are to take WAEC. All right? Yeah. I think the PTF did a good job. But if you look at those guidelines carefully, states, and we're focusing on the public schools now, states and local governments have primary responsibility to deploy resources to make sure that these children resume and get back. I like to be a realist as well as a pragmatist, okay? Give it or take it, the federal government have now gone back to say, sorry, public schools are not going back to resume for whatever pressures they were given. But I think it is unfair. The headline that I saw in one of our dailies this morning was that the children are eager to go and take these exams, and because they've been preparing, okay? Now, it is not a good sign. It is not a good sign of the sync between the policy makers and the implementers. It is not a good sign. And that's how you understand the kind of progress we are making in society. The guideline for implementing resumption of schools, in my view, was quite clear and it's easy for implementation. If the states now deploy their resources to the number of schools that they have, and the local governments as well, that guideline can be implemented for our children to go back to school. I believe that. But all of a sudden, there is this mindset that says, oh, they are going to be exposed to, what is it called? The possibility
of increased cases
of increased cases of this thing. Yes, that probability is there. We do agree. Okay? But what we could do is, can we resume for about a week or two before these exams take place and see what data we can get if these guidelines are followed to the letter?
Like you said, I mean, it's easy for private secondary schools because they have those measures and they can do spacing. But for public secondary schools, particularly for SS3, that may have like 150 students, and they have to now really ensure that they are spaced properly and the facilities are on ground, like water and all that, which most times, if you look at some
they
schools,
may not have.
They don't have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, that's what I'm saying. You see, government is not, let's be realistic. I talk about realism and pragmatism.
Yeah.
The schools should know, and if the state governments and the local governments play their role and deploy the funds that are with them, not warehouse it, you get my point. These things can be done. So that's my argument. My argument is these things can be done. Not all the arms of the classes are resuming.
Yes, just the graduating classes.
In the secondary school,
SS3,
just SS3
SS3
and GSS3. So the number of classes they may have is likely to take them.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
In terms of spacing, yes.
So in terms of spacing, that is not an issue. Are you getting my point?
Yeah.
The same thing for those in the primary schools. So I don't understand the kind of pressure that we are putting our children under. It's unfortunate that we seem to think that, again, my argument is, I am not sure, those of us who are arguing, I'm not saying we should expose our children to this danger.
Yes.
To this danger. I'm not saying that. But the guidelines, the guidelines that were spelled out for implementation, I have looked at those guidelines and reasoned in my small mind how this can be implemented. Trust me, Otto, these things can be implemented.
They can, but the commitment from where you have government school, for example, we have over 108 unity schools. If federal government can ensure, like, for all the SS3s and GSS3s that are going back, that they will have those facilities, they will have those measures in place, down to even how the toilets are managed and all that.
Otto,
that is very important.
Otto, yeah. I'm sorry to cut in. We were told that we distributed by the Ministry of Humanitarian Services. What are we talking about?
Yes.
Some people should not make some of us get angry. That we distributed how many billions to how many people within how many days? Come on.
Those are
you see, for some of us, these things are no-brainers. The government we've got the resources. So it's government, it's ways and means.
Special intervention, ensure that funds
It's a
are
special
deployed.
intervention for the life, the future of our children, of the future of this nation. So that takes priority. So the way we see it, is ways and means. So when I look at some argument, and I'm saying, no, I disagree. But that's the beauty about democracy.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. However, we're talking about policy implementation, and my take is, I'm not a member of the PTF. You know, we've disagreed with some when it started initially.
Of course, yeah.
But as they ramped up, as time progressed, these guys are getting their acts together. This is not the time for us to unwholesomely criticize when there is no need for it. I think the guidelines are good enough. Federal, state, and the local governments. Local governments are for primary school. Primary school.
Yeah.
Are they also for secondary? Maybe not.
No,
the state government. You get my point. Each arms of these government should deploy resources and get this thing done so that these children can take their exam. Life is not going to wait for anybody. Now, if I take you back, during the Civil War, all right, some of us were in the same class with people who went to the war and came back and met us.
I've heard those stories. Yeah.
I was in Lagos. I was in class with people who were Civil War soldiers who came back to Lagos. And they integrated. Yes. I was in class with them. Yeah. Did we stop? Did the schools in Lagos stop? No.
That was like a war situation. But now this is a health pandemic.
Yes, this is a health
deeper
pandemic.
Than what happened in 1918.
That is correct.
Yeah.
But the precautions, all we are saying is that government, state, federal, and the local governments have these resources to deploy to make sure that the public schools are ready to receive our children. We cannot keep them, you get my point, at home for too long because they are currently disadvantaged to their peers who are in private schools. Did you see the inequality gap we are talking about?
Yes.
And the impact this season will have on them is profound. We're not looking at that now. So some of us are not looking at that now. So we need to look down the future. And when we look down the future, that enables us to plan better and respond. I am of the argument that we can do this thing. And we're going to take all the cares under the sun. And all we need are resources to be deployed so that the school environments are in a good shape to receive our children.
Mr. John, quickly before we go into a presentation, we are always good at the framework. But when you look at the guidelines that was even set for transportation, let's take example Lagos and the market, very nice. But when you go around, like I went around, I've seen, it's not, people are not following those guidelines again. And that is again the concerns. And like I rightly said, yes, schools can open for the graduating classes, but the implementation framework is very key. And that brings us to quickly, just a few minutes, your thoughts. The religious organizations are saying, fine, markets are reopening, you want to open schools and all that, and then you now tell us that we should still engage. I mean, this is a very serious issue of concern. Just few minutes.
That's in Lagos, because in some other states and the FCT, churches are using the guidelines to fellowship. In places of worship.
I mean, states like Akwa Ibom, Delta, Bayelsa, even down to Kaduna,
although
we
found that
they're
flouting the social distance issue.
So,
although these are interesting times. They're interesting times because people fail to understand that the churches, when people get into the house of worship, if there are no strict rules to manage these people, you get my point, anything can happen. And I will just counsel that all of our religious leaders, like someone once tweeted, I think it was the chairman of ProChair, you know, life is funny. The church is not the building. The church is not the building. The church is the body. They are the individuals. A few months down the line, they should adapt to the circumstance that we find ourselves. The marketplaces and all those places that they are talking about, okay, people are trying to fend for themselves. How many of our churches are reaching out to their members for livelihood? Meanwhile, they have fat bank accounts.
Okay,
This thing is too emotional.
That's not it. But quickly, also, just one more minute. Interstate travel has resumed, and then domestic flights have resumed now. In terms of the feedback you're getting, are we following those guidelines effectively? Because these are other areas that, if not well managed, we can have a spike in cases. Particularly interstate transport. Someone's traveling from Abuja to Lagos for over 7 8 hours, you say, use face mask. And the spacing and all that. Implementing those things are very important.
That's true. Otto, again, we needed to do this and let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. I think for air travels, the Lagos-Abuja route, the feedback we've got so far is good. The feedback we've got so far is good. We will see as other airports open today.
Yeah.
And we'll see what is happening. The ones by the roads, we've not heard anything. And you see, and that's why during our last session here, you asked me what do I expect the government to do.
Yeah.
I told
and
you
you rightly
government
said
was going to release the lockdown.
Even though I was surprised that you said that, and that is what has...
No, Otto, we are looking at the same data, and we are looking at the behaviors of our people, all right? We are looking at the behaviors of our people. Okay, from what I gathered, for air travel, domestic air travel that opened a few days ago, people who said they wanted to travel, I have heard that the airlines are combining flights because people are not coming. There is still that phobia, trepidation, that phobia. Now, man is funny, but that's what it is.
So we need that data gathering too for the interstate travel.
Yes,
definitely we'll try and reach out to some of those transport vehicles.
We think the Notable members, I am sure the PTF crew will have engaged with them. I'm pretty sure. Otto, I think we should stop thinking Nigeria, we're not data conscious any longer.
We're not beginning to.
We are data conscious.
And just to chip in as you make a presentation, this whole issue of schools, it's time to see how states are able to get data of all the schools they have. Because you can't tell me that you don't have data about your schools and know which ones need further revamping at this point.
Absolutely.
To ensure that we have had
Thanks, Otto. Thank you so much.
So we'll leave the stage for you for your presentation.
Thank you, viewers, and welcome. Sorry, last week I was a little bit under the weather, but we are all pushing forward. I just wanted to recap and just share what I shared last week with a little different perspective, where I was talking about the unconscious organization. And if you recall, I tried to talk to you about the objectives. I said, what we will try to achieve during this session will to make you to become conscious of what you don't know. Because what you are unconscious about, it could be something you actually do not know, either intentionally or unintentionally. And I said another thing we could achieve is to help you improve your state of mind via reflection to enhance your leadership journey. I also said that during this series that it will help you to become more tolerant of other people. When I say other people, I'm referring to a wide gamut of issues, which is why the word other is in quoted marks. I also said that it will also help you to seek to understand first before you and I judge. There are lots of things that we do, and a host of others. There are lots of things that you and I do in the course of the kind of relationships that we have, either as individuals or as organizations, or as managers, or executives in our various enterprises, which we do without knowing the harm or otherwise it is having to individuals or to the organization. Which is why I said that by the end of this, you will be able to create a sustainable enterprise while remaining socially responsible. You could see the kind of agitation that has been going around globally, in recent times. The reason you are finding all of this is that all of a sudden, we have a new demographic of citizens worldwide that is causing some level of, consciousness for all of us to respond to. Which is why I try to give my own understanding of what I felt an unconscious organization is. And I said that the unconscious organization is that undocumented ways and means by which an enterprise or a group of people, how they operate, that helps them to either thrive or fail. The key words there are undocumented ways and means. You most likely don't find them in your procedures, in your standard of operating procedures. You most likely don't find them in your policies. But unconsciously, as an individual or as an enterprise, you manifest these behaviors or you take these decisions. And while you have good faith or good intentions in taking these decisions, your enterprise end up experiencing the wrong outcome. So which is why I am saying that if you are conscious of acts, decisions, or choices that you make as a result of your unconscious state, it is because you are doing this because you are having any one of these that I have shared. It could be as a result of your blind spots. And I said, there are examples of how you manifest or an enterprise manifests unconscious actions or choices or decisions that we do. I said default behaviors of management and employees. I talked about cultural manifestations that hamper or propel the organization for prosperity. One example I could cite with this behavior of number 3 is, for example, how do you allow ideas to flow from the lower rung of your organization up? How do you do that? Do you have such a conscious enterprise? Do you allow such to thrive? In terms of your leadership style, are you always bent on being hierarchical? Meanwhile, the industry that you are in, or the people that you are leading, the organization that you are leading, the department, the unit that you are leading, requires a different leadership style so that you can thrive. And I said another way you find unconscious behaviors, unconscious actions manifesting is in decision making. For example, most times when 2 candidates apply for a position, by default, we may unconsciously believe that someone that is more properly dressed than the other, a candidate might probably that, and you begin to feel, oh, this person is likely the candidate that we are looking for. Or you may think that because somebody is from a particular part of the world or a particular gender, you believe that particular candidate or that person is going to make a better deal for you, or is going to occupy that post or run it properly. What about during recruitment? Let me shock you of what current trend is on recruitment. Most times we believe our male colleagues or the male candidates will perform better than females in a particular role, in almost any role. What about the idea that in our palace here, some of us are still thinking that unless you study finance and accounts, that's when you are qualified to be the CEO of an enterprise. Now you can see what unconscious actions that we are carrying in today's climate in the workplace. Why can't somebody in HR be groomed for a CEO position in any industry? Why can't someone in production, for example, be groomed for a CEO role? What about communication? The unconscious way we communicate with one another An unconscious way we communicate is to use the male pronoun, he, to describe and to give an example in a conversation. And today, the female folks are already saying, why should you always make a sentence of an example with the he pronoun, with the male pronoun he? Why can't we say she? So some of us are learning to adapt to these unconscious ways. Unconsciously, we use the word mankind. Today, the state of California has said there is no word like mankind in their own dictionary any longer, that we should be using the word humankind. Unconscious. What about the way we grow talents? How do you grow your talents? Unconsciously, how do you look at, instead of using transparent talent management criteria to groom the talents in your organization, we fall back to default mode. Default mode, unconsciously, to say, oh, because someone came into an organization earlier, he or she must therefore follow the hierarchy of the number of years, that he or she has arrived to be able to progress. That is not correct. Now, these are unconscious actions that we have been doing over the years that has been hampering us. Now, the only thing I'm trying to do today is to refresh our mind of how I started this conversation of the unconscious organization and how you can begin to recognize this first as an individual, then as an enterprise, to see how you can manage this. And one of the things I shared, which I'm also going to share now, is I said, okay, let's use a particular tool that we use in helping to groom leaders or managers to be better at leading or at managing. And I talked about the Johari window. I said the Johari window is a quadrant that has one of the quadrant that talks about what is open, what is blind spot, what is unknown, and what is hidden. Now, let me give a brief description of each. If you look at the Johari window, as I've shown, for each quadrant, if you take what is open, we are saying what is known to you and to other people, first as an individual, then as an organization. We can use this to give you feedback. You can unconsciously look at this. Now, if you look at blind spots, we are saying what others seem to know about you, but you do not know about yourself. We say that's your blind spot. If you look at unknown, we said what you don't know about yourself, as well as what other people or what other organizations don't know about you. Then what is hidden is what you know about yourself and other people do not know. However, my line of thought in this context is, how can you use this information, this tool, to be able to become a better individual? To be able to use it to leverage your organization to become better. That's my context. And I'm saying that if you are able to open up yourself to feedback on your blind spots, and also if you are able to take and give yourself open to constructive feedback of the things you know about yourself that you can allow others to know, you are likely, I am also likely, to become a better person, both as an individual as well as an organization. So the things I don't know, the things I am unaware about, it is only when I am open to feedback, which is my blind spot, people tell me the things I don't know about myself, as well as when I'm also willing to open up so that people can know me better, or people can know your organizations better, then I might improve in my decision making. Then I can improve in my leadership journey. Then I can improve in the way I make decisions, in the way I recruit. But here is the catch. If all of this is done, the unknowns are where I am saying there are unbounded potentials. If I open myself to feedback and I'm also willing to give, what about what I don't know about myself and what others don't know? It is the interaction of this that can make me utilize what people I relate with and what I also don't know about myself. That's where unbounded opportunities are. That's where I can begin to make myself available for the opportunities that are ahead. So my question is, which was where I stopped last week, my question is, how are you making yourself open to the unbounded possibilities, the unbounded potentials of what you don't know about yourself, what I don't know about myself, and what other people don't know about me? That is making me to behave or take decisions unconsciously. And I said my context using this tool is, if I open up to feedback, and if I'm also willing to tell a little bit more about myself or about my organization, and this can come through various means of support, then I can discover so much more about what I am and what I can do. This sets the pace. This creates a completely different conversation from where you were. So, as you go into next week, and by the time we are talking about this next week, we will take another example. Today we took the issue of blind spots. Whatever it is, there are unbounded opportunities. So I need to recognize the unconscious actions that I make. You need to understand, as an organization, the unconscious decisions that you make, which is why we say you need to have a greater view of the various stakeholders or consequences for every decision that you make.
Thank you very much, Mr. John Wese. I mean, your closing point was really touching to me, because we need to, in an organization, be open. I like the Johari window. I mean, the whole concept around it is very touchy, it's very appealing. The fact that in that Johari window, there's a quadrant of being open, the issue of the blind spots, and that fact of being open to feedback is very important to all of us, because it helps you to look back and say, like you said, unconscious steps or decisions you take, why did you take them, and what are the learning points? And particularly the hidden and unknown. those are very key aspects. That quadrant, that Johari window. And then I like the way you laid out the fact that organizations should look at growth and talent development, which is very important. And that we must change that narrative around the he model. I mean, everything involving
we must not change it, please.
No. The thing is that we must be inclusive.
We must be inclusive.
But the other context is that, which of course a lot of people debate about.
We must give allowance.
Yes, allowance, but of course we must not make it a masculine perspective. You disagree with that?
I am not against it, neither am I for it.
Okay.
The reason I say that is this. Okay. I asked a question recently with one from my mentor, one of my mentor, my leadership coach, actually, is my coach. Okay. I said, what about if God, the creator, had created a woman first? How will the world look like? You know, when we engage in conversations like this, all right, we're not engaging in them for the fun of it, because we are seeing changes taking place in humanity. Yeah. So we are beginning to ask questions. how would life be, or how would humanity be, or how will humankind be if the Creator had created a woman first? You get the point?
Yeah.
Now, so yes, I have nothing. I'm not a chauvinist. I don't think so, unless
Okay.
somebody tells me otherwise. Yes,
You
unless
know,
somebody
there's some comments you
tells me
make, and of course you may get that feedback. But of course,
yes,
it's
unless
very
somebody tells
important,
me that.
very important.
So yes, although the society is changing, so all of us, that's why we're having this conversation of the
Yeah.
unconscious organization.
Yes.
All of us must be aware of other gender. You get the point. All of us must be aware of how the way women lead is not the way men lead.
And there are interesting examples in Nigeria. A lot of organizations are being led by women these days.
The way women lead
Yeah.
is not the way men lead. That's the truth. However, even if you're a woman, if you are poorly managed and led by a leader or by your manager who have poor behaviors, poor communication, or what we say a poor leadership style, you and I are likely to replicate the way we were led.
So leadership really matters. And then the aspect that you said that people can move from HR to be CEO.
Oh, yes.
That touched me because I'm looking at list of CEOs over the years. HR, which is even a good way of managing human relations, doesn't really have that good stats of
Also,
CEOs.
I challenged some friends of mine in the HR community recently.
Yeah.
I said, if you look at the corporate Nigeria, both quoted and unquoted, of the big firms,
listed firms,
right?
yeah.
How many HR professionals have risen to the point of being MD CEO of a quoted firm or of a global firm? I only know of one.
And who is that?
Bumioni.
Okay,
Bumioni.
okay, that was
now, Mr.
Cadbury?
Bumioni, yes, who was in Cadbury.
Cadbury PLC.
Now, after Mr. Bumioni left, who else from that discipline, that's just an example.
Yeah, example.
Who else from that discipline have risen to that position? So, again, unconscious bias. And by the way, the accountant, the finance guy, by default, see themselves as
and even chief operating officers,
successors,
yes.
you know, to be CEO once the role is vacant. You get my point?
Particularly financial institutions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, there's another guy that I know who led a global firm.
Yeah.
You know, he's an HR practitioner, just like that. Now, I had the honor of working with this guy.
Okay.
You get my point? So for me, when I was challenging this group of HR directors recently, you know, at a forum, and I was saying, if you guys are not pushing an agenda, because basically,
HR directors understand organizational culture, organizational behavior, and transformation processes.
They will be able to manage people better. Okay? They just need a certain level of foundation to intermediate business or financial management skills. Leave the remaining.
And communication people too are also very good because of the fact that in times like this, leadership and communication have a strong nexus. We'll go on with this conversation next Saturday. Thank you very much, Mr. John Wese.
Thank you.
It was nice listening to you about the unconscious organization, personal and organizational good hacks. Look forward to that conversation next weekend. Your weekend has already started, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation on the unconscious organization, personal and organizational good hacks with Mr. John Wese, a strategy management consultant and CEO of Syntech Nigeria Limited. This conversation continues next weekend, and you can log on to our website, www.proshenji.com, to watch our videos around strategic management and also get our reports and analysis. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and stay safe.